Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're taking an escalating journey through interactive grief. We're going to count down the top 10 most heartbreaking NPC deaths in video games, and we'll be exploring exactly how these interactive moments leave such a lasting mark on us.
Okay, let's dive into this. Why do we mourn lines of code? It seems a little silly on the surface, but the core thesis here is that video games are the ultimate empathy machines. You don't just passively watch these stories, you live them. You're the one pushing the buttons. And as we'll see today, victory in these digital worlds often demands a terrible, heartbreaking price. Starting off at number 10, we have Dom Santiago from Gears of War 3. Now, Dom had already suffered through one of gaming's absolute cruelest fates, right? Finding his missing wife, Maria, as an unrecognizable shell of herself, and then having to make the impossible decision to end her suffering. Those scars literally never healed. So when his squad is finally cornered by impossible odds, Dom takes agency into his own hands. He steals a fuel truck and drives it directly into the enemy horde just to save his friends.
His final words really just say it all. Never thought it would end like this, huh? Huh, Maria? The explosion that follows is absolutely enormous, but what's really striking is the deafening silence that comes right after. I mean, even Marcus Phoenix, a hardened soldier who rarely shows any emotion, is left completely speechless. For players who had fought side by side with Dom through 3 whole games, this wasn't just a plot point. It genuinely felt like losing a real squad mate.
Let's move to number 9, Mipha's tragedy from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. This builds a completely different kind of sorrow. Unlike Dom, Mipha actually dies 100 years before the game even begins. As Link regains his memories, we learn she quietly loved him, going so far as to craft ceremonial armor for the day she hoped they'd be together. But then, the day of calamity strikes, and she dies alone fighting inside divine beast Vah Ruta. In the present day, her spirit helps Link one final time.
Coming in at number 8, we have Peter's impossible choice in Marvel's Spider-Man. This is essentially the ultimate superhero trolley problem. On one hand, save one person, Aunt May. On the other, save thousands of strangers in the city. Peter finally has the cure for a deadly epidemic, but there's literally only enough for one dose. What makes this so gut-wrenching is that May completely understands the choice before Peter even speaks. She simply tells him to take off his mask so she can see her nephew. He saves the city, but it's a profound reminder that being Spider-Man can cost him absolutely everything.
That brings us to number 7, Vesemir from The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, escalating our theme of losing fiercely loyal companions. Vesemir isn't just Geralt's mentor, he's the last father figure of the Witchers. During the massive battle of Kaer Morhen, he sacrifices himself to protect Ciri. When he falls, even Geralt, a mutant specifically trained to suppress all emotion, visibly breaks. Vesemir dies exactly as he lived, protecting his family. And honestly, Kaer Morhen just never feels the same again.
Now, what's really interesting about this number 6 spot is how it highlights a very unique second-person agency. We're talking about Arthur Morgan's horse in Red Dead Redemption 2. This is deeply unique because every player's experience is completely different. During that frantic final escape, the specific horse you've ridden for dozens, maybe hundreds of hours, is mortally wounded.
Arthur doesn't just keep running to save himself. He stops, kneels beside his dying companion, and says these 2 simple words: "Thank you." There's no sweeping dramatic music here. There are no grand speeches. It's just a dying outlaw taking a precious moment to comfort his loyal friend in the dirt.
A lot of players admit this quiet moment hurt even more than Arthur's own tragic fate, and this perfectly illustrates the deep emotional bond we build strictly through our gameplay mechanics and the time we spend in these worlds. It shifts us perfectly into our next category, the realm of sudden, shattering losses that you just never see coming.
Which brings us to number 5, Aerith Gainsborough from Final Fantasy VII. Think about your immense investment in her. You've got dozens of hours of gameplay, you're meticulously leveling up her abilities. You're building a deep friendship with Cloud, you build her into a core pillar of your team. And then, while she kneels in prayer, Sephiroth descends from above without any warning whatsoever, instantly stripping all of that investment away.
There's no miracle here, no last-minute rescue, and no secret revival in the original story. The iconic battle music is simply replaced by silence as Cloud carries her into the water. This single, devastating moment taught an entire generation of players a really harsh truth: heroes don't always save everyone.
Let's move to number 4, Lee Everett from The Walking Dead. Over 5 gripping episodes, Lee undergoes this absolutely incredible transformation.
He begins the story as a convicted killer, but slowly and beautifully becomes the steadfast protector and father figure to young Clementine in a world gone totally mad.
How his journey concludes is just unforgettable. After accepting the fatal bite, his priority isn't survival. His next step is teaching Clementine how to live without him. And finally, it forces an agonizing player choice. You must decide whether Clementine shoots Lee or leaves him behind to turn. Because of the relationship you've actively shaped, this doesn't feel like a game ending. It feels like saying a very real, permanent goodbye to a close friend.
Coming in at number 3, we have Sarah from The Last of Us. The really fascinating thing about Sarah is that she appears for barely 20 minutes. That's all it takes. The game begins with her, just a normal teenager, wandering the house in ordinary confusion as the outbreak begins. But soon, she and her father Joel are fleeing, only to be cornered by a soldier. And then, a gunshot rings out.
I want you to focus on this number, 20, because the 20 years of Joel's life that follow, and indeed the entire emotional foundation of this celebrated game, are born from the single moment he catches his dying daughter in his arms. 20 minutes of gameplay, fueling 20 years of unimaginable grief. To put that into perspective, it's the anchor for absolutely everything that happens next.
So, the crucial point is how we arrive at our final chapter of ultimate tragic sacrifices. Number 2 is John Marston from Red Dead Redemption. John spends the entire game fighting and hunting his former gang for one specific promise, buying his family's freedom. He actually thinks he's finally secured peace. He returns to his ranch, ready to just live quietly.
But of course, the government arrives anyway. John walks out of the barn alone to face dozens of rifles. As a player, your futile instinct is to draw your weapon, to try and shoot your way out of it. But it simply doesn't matter. The screen fills with bullets. John dies, buying that future for his wife and son, finally becoming the honorable man he strove the entire game to be.
And finally, we reach our number 1 spot, the boss from Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. Let me tell you, few deaths in any medium carry the immense philosophical and emotional weight of this character. This is the woman who trained, inspired, and practically raised Naked Snake.
Let's step through the devastating reality of her story here. First, throughout the game, she's believed to be a traitor. Second, Snake spends his entire mission believing he must defeat her, which he tragically does. But then we hit step 3, where the truth is finally revealed. She was a willing scapegoat. She never betrayed anyone. She willingly accepted the role of villain, and for step 4, was executed as a hero to prevent a global nuclear war, sacrificing her honor and her life.
Victory arrives wearing the mask of defeat. When Snake stands crying at her grave, unable to even salute through his tears, the player realizes they didn't just execute a monster, they executed history's greatest hero. It's an ending that leaves you staring at the credits in complete, stunned silence.
These interactive sacrifices are way more than just plot points. They teach us profound lessons about consequence, empathy, and the heavy weight of our goodbyes. So I leave you with this final provocative thought. Which permanent save file still breaks your heart? Think about the lines of code that made you feel something real. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring the stories that move you.